All right, right on. So this is technically episode one of my little podcast here. I did episode zero last week with a good friend of mine. He helped me jumpstart this thing. So
Okay.
just a little bit about this channel here. I'm passionate about reading and books and writing as well. So
hmm
my goal is to sort of talk to authors and not just authors, but people that have read certain books that I've read and things of that nature, so we can talk about them on the channel and stuff. And
Hmm.
last week we talked about Rambo's First Blood, and that was really fun. So didn't even know that was based on a book when we read it, but it was a good time with
Oh
both.
yeah.
Yeah. So my belief
I
is
think he dies at the end of that one.
he does. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So way different than the movie, but it's my general belief though that if you're always reading something, you always have something to talk about. So um, with
Mhm.
that being said, we'll jump in here. So I got Sylvester Barzey, right? Is Barzey,
Yes.
right?
Barzey. Yep.
Yeah, cool, man. So if you want to tell people about yourself a little bit,
All right. So I am a horror and fantasy author. I've been self-publishing since 2017. My first book was Planet Dead. It's a first book in a zombie series, post-apocalyptic, and I started writing that in 2010, and took 7 years to get it out, but I'm moving faster now, so it's
right?
good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I started working on my first novel, and it took me 10 years, and I only ended up with 160 pages. But after that, I haven't published anything or anything like that. But after
Mhm.
that, it's kind of helped me work out some kinks and figure myself out. So I can appreciate the amount of time it took you to get your first stuff going there. Um, so from your Goodreads, I lifted a couple things off there. I can tell you're a pretty big horror fan right off the jump. And I read your short horror story, Parish, which gave me some serious Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes. And I mean that in a good way. So you mentioned in your biography there that the lone survivor girl is kind of like one of your big inspirations, and maybe one of your favorite genres. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk more about the lack of representation, as you mentioned that in the sort of write up for
Yeah,
that book. If you could kind of jump in there a little bit.
okay. I've just always been, like, a slasher fan. I just love slashers. I love Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm addicted to them. But, growing up, it's kinda shifting now, but growing up, the formula for a slasher was you had a final girl and you had a killer, and the final girl was mostly predominantly white. It was always a white final girl. So that just when I got the opportunity to create and make my own worlds, I just decided I was gonna, do my own thing and allow people within the Black community to see themselves as survivors within horror movies, because I feel like that's the main component for horror movies and especially slashers. It's less about the gore and the kills and more about the survival aspect for me. I love the fact that there's this just regular person who overcomes all these odds and they're the last one standing. That's always stuck with me. So I just wanted to recreate that.
Right on. I appreciate that. That's do you have a favorite one? You mentioned that there are some uh, you know, black final survivors.
Mhm.
You didn't list any there,
Yeah.
but do you have a favorite one? I got three personal. Not all of them are girls though, but
Oh, like a favorite, like final girl or final survivors.
yep.
Um, Geraldine from Demon Knight.
Demon Knight. Yep.
Uh, yeah, Sydney from Scream. Even though I'm not rocking with Scream right now, and who who else would be my um Aaron from You're Next.
Right on. I'm glad.
Aaron is just crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Jada Pinkett Smith's performance in Demon Knight made the top of your list there.
Yeah,
That's one of my
yeah.
all-time favorite movies. Um,
It's so good. I just showed my wife it like last year. She never saw it before, and
right.
now she loves it.
Yeah, it's a underrated classic. It doesn't make a whole lot of lists, but it's pretty good stuff there.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see here. Have you seen? I got a few others, but they're not necessarily um, females in this particular case. But have you seen the movie Night of the Demons by chance?
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
So Roger in that film, he's the my daddy was a preacher
Roger's
man guy.
awesome.
Yep, he's top of my list there. My daddy was a preacher man. I love that guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Roger was trying to get out from the get go.
right? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sir. He
So
was. He knew exactly what was going on the whole movie. Um, and then of course, this one's a little bit genre bending, but the original Assault on Precinct 13, John Carpenter flick from '76. Um,
mhm,
and the cop, the whole movie makes it to the end of the movie. He survives the
yeah.
assault. That's probably one of my all time favorites. So uh, I don't, there's not a whole lot though, and unfortunately, I kind of think that sort of speaks to your point that I came up with three, and
Oh,
so
just three
right,
black ones
yep,
all together.
and I
Yeah.
so I think that kind of speaks to the point that you're trying to make, maybe.
Yeah.
And
Um, I always kind of felt like the zombie genre, like early when Romero was doing his, had a lot of black survivors. Maybe not a lot, but you can find more black survivors in the zombie genre than you can in most other ones.
yes, sir. You got the original Living Dead, of course, and then Dawn of the Dead, um,
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead as
And
well.
then you got Selena from 28 Days Later, and then yeah, you just got a lot more people that you can put on your survivor list when you watch zombie movies.
Right. So I actually noticed something. I had a few highlights when I read Parish, and I know that's not your latest work and everything, but I found it to be
Mhm.
really good. So thank you for sharing that with me.
No
There
problem.
there was a
I'm
character.
happy you liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, there was a character in that named Cash, and that character stood out to me because he had a military background, and you get a little glimpse as to why the character, not to sort of recap the whole book, but he stands out as being the one non-racist guy in this whole town and parish, and ends up doing something somewhat heroic. And his military background spoke to me as a character because, as a former veteran myself, I was in the Navy for 5 years. I was kind of introduced to this idea, of diversity that I didn't necessarily get through my hometown, right? And being in uniform kind of forced me to sort of associate with people who I had no idea what they were like outside, right? And then you see each
Yes.
other in your civilian clothes for the first time, and you realize I probably wouldn't have hung out with this guy or that guy, but
Mhm.
sort of the uniform is kind of this great
Yeah.
equalizer in a sense, right? So it shed some of those things. I was wondering if that was anything that you could speak on from personal experience, or if that was just
Yeah. Uh,
some
I was in the army for like 9 years, so I do feel like the military, because you just feel like you're trained to just be a soldier. We're all supposed to be soldiers, and then everything else is secondary. That's how it's supposed to be.
right,
So you do get into a lot of situations with people from like across the country or people from across the world. Like I've met people from the Philippines, and I am going to Afghanistan. Uh, it's it's definitely, it takes you out of your comfort zone, and it allows you to see different people and what they're like.
right,
So I do feel like with Cash, him going to the military allowed him to see outside of his small little bubble, because that town doesn't have any black people.
right,
So whatever they think black people are, it's just within that bubble. Where they get it from, they're all getting it from the same place. So Cash leaving this bubble and seeing the world, he's probably like, oh well, this isn't what I was told. So yeah, that's why his voice was definitely different. Yeah, my life has been uh I guess kind of privileged. I've popped around and seen different communities and
right,
been to different places. I was born in New York, then I went to Rhode Island for school. and I came to Georgia, then I went to Kansas in the military, and then Afghanistan. So I feel like I've gotten opportunities to meet different type of people. So that's why I always feel like people just need representation within their fiction, because the world's just this big old place of mixed up people, and most of our fiction, at least in the US, is just kind of white. So
Right. Yeah, I definitely. I thought it may have been something to that effect when I read about that character. And it was just that
mhm.
short little glimpse there, but I highlighted it because I was like, I wonder, because it sounded like a, sort of like a familiar experience that I had in the military as well. Just
Mm,
you got to work with everybody. Um,
yeah,
so I definitely like that, and obviously, thank you for your service as well, the 9 years. Uh,
thank you for yours.
Thank you. Um, so obviously, that was one of your older stories. You got quite a few out there, and it looks like you're about to release another one, as far as I can tell. Um,
Yeah,
you want to talk about that for just a second?
yeah, sure. I have Camp Lanier is dropping July 9th. So I live in Georgia, and you don't really have to be from Georgia to know what Lake Lanier is. Lake Lanier is like the deadliest man-made body of water in America.
Right.
Like 20 and some odd people die every year, and it's just weird. And it was built on top of a town, or well, a few towns, because a public domain, what is it? Eminent domain,
Domain, yeah.
and the government just like takes your property.
Right.
And yeah, so that's what happened with that, and it's on top of Oscarville. So they didn't knock down anything. The buildings are still there. You can, when we had a drought a few years ago, you could see the top of the bleachers for a race car track. So they say that's why a lot of people die, because they get like trapped up in debris and stuff. But I don't know anyone that's swimming that low, so I don't know about that.
Right
But
on. Right on.
so my book is about a fictionalized camp that's sitting on Lake Lanier, and just this real outsider who, she's from Virginia. She just moved there. She's only been in Georgia for a year, and it's kind of like Holes. Like, she gets arrested and she has a choice between jail or working at this camp. So she's like, I'm gonna go work at this camp, and it's probably would have been safer in jail. But yeah, so
Right. Yeah, I think I might check that one out. I definitely know a few friends of mine who would be interested in that type of story. So if, at the very least, I'll show it to them as well. Um,
cool.
so you mentioned earlier that all your stuff is self-published. Is that correct? Or
Mhm.
yeah. Um,
Um, I started self-publishing. I think this year I have some projects coming out with small presses.
right.
So I have like Dead Soil, which is pirate zombie apocalypse. That's coming out with Dark Lit Press, and the two books that I've Youngblood, that came out earlier this year, and Camp Lanier are being published by Sterling and Stone. So I got to work with two small presses to see what it was like, because before then it was all just me.
Yeah, right on. So is there an advantage that you're hoping for in terms of working with one of these smaller publishers that takes a load off of what you've been doing in the past, or what's the advantage there?
I just like that they pay for things. Like, I don't have to
Yeah.
I don't have to pay for the cover, I don't have to pay for the editing. I just gotta write the book and then ship it off, and then they even pay for marketing and ads.
Oh, right
I don't
on.
know what my cut's gonna be, but
Yeah,
at least my pockets are fine. So I'm okay.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds kind of exciting. I noticed your social media stuff looks pretty legit there, and that's kind of a whole
Mm,
other battle. Do you do all that yourself, or do you?
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're doing a
Yeah.
good job there. I'll throw you some thumbs up on that stuff
Oh,
because I was like, this is a pretty
thanks.
polished look, right? It's better than. Uh, but I also understand that takes a lot of time and effort too. It's almost like a full time job to sit there and
Yeah, designing stuff and coming up with, like, yeah, it takes a lot, but I'm just I've always just been kind of like addicted to making things like that on the computer.
right.
So, and I have Canva, so Canva makes everything like a breeze.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I just love making stuff. Sometimes I make stuff for other authors, but for the most part, like I'll have my cell phone in my hand and I'll probably be making some images for Instagram
Yeah.
until my wife tells me to stop.
Yeah, I could respect that. I
Mm.
usually first thing in the morning I'll sit there and make like a YouTube short. I'm trying to grow this channel, and it's
Yeah.
it's its whole other thing. And I can definitely say that you're killing it in that regard. So for anybody that
Thanks.
sees that page, I think they definitely think it's a professional that's doing that. So
Cool.
um,
Cool.
I know that it's like I found you through a Facebook group. I just asked if there was any authors that wanted to come on this podcast real quick, and you volunteered, so I appreciate that. Um,
No problem.
yeah, and then of course they immediately deleted my my post because it because
Oh,
it breaks the admin rules there. But with that, it's like I don't, it's hard to get stuff out there without like paying for the promotion and things like that, and
mhm.
because everybody's got these rules about what you can post, and self promoting is always against the rules. So even if
Yeah.
you have that perfect thing for your exact audience, you're not allowed to show it to them
Mhm.
without being deleted. So
Yeah. Like Facebook groups are like very dictatorship, and it's just kind of crazy because like a lot of them will have rules like you can only self promote maybe on Friday or Saturday, but I'm part of like 150 groups. I'm probably not gonna remember what day you picked. So
right. Is it?
so now I don't really market too much in them. I just try and talk to people, and I'll post like book reviews, or if somebody's asking for something, then I'll jump in there and I'll be like, hey, maybe my book might be nice. But I
Right.
try and recommend other people's books more.
Right.
I, I hope that karma comes back and helps me. So
Right. I hope so too, because it's a pretty good strategy. And not to just look at it like a strategy, because you don't want it to suck the joy out of reading and stuff. But you mentioned some other
yeah.
people's books there, and I can tell your
Mhm.
writing is heavily influenced by film.
Yeah.
And are you a heavy reader though? Do you have any authors or anybody like that you really look up to, or?
I read a lot now. I think my work is more influenced by film because when I was growing up, I wasn't too good at reading. So I watched just TV. I watched TV and movies, and I'll read comic books and R.L. Stein books, but I wasn't deep into reading like everybody else. So now I'm kind of playing catch up. So
Right.
there's, let's see, I love Tiffany D. Jackson. She's the one that did The Weight of Blood and White Smoke. Weight of Blood was like a Carrie retelling. So that was awesome. Um, Grady Hendrix is awesome. I love his stuff. He's he's a lot of fun. Um, as far as like indie people, I know Mona Kabani. I love her stuff. Um, there's a lot of indie people that I love either their work or I just love their hustle
Right.
and I just like to support them.
Right on.
So
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty into reading just about anything that comes my way, and it's weird
mm,
because I found that um, for the most part, horror as a genre, I definitely prefer in the film format, as opposed to reading. And there's something that I discovered recently, is that I think that the short story format, or a novella format, really works best for horror, in my opinion,
mm,
because I've read a few Stephen King books, and I'm not going to knock on Stephen King, but they feel like it took me almost a year to read Pet Cemetery.
uh,
And
I I feel like that's just King though.
yeah,
Like
I hear that
he
a lot. I hear that a lot now.
yeah.
But then it's like I read something like what you wrote with Parrish or whatever, and there's kind of like this sweet spot though, where it's like I read The Exorcist as well, and it's a longer book, but
Yeah.
it's a slow burn
Mm,
kind of thing, but it's not really scary. It attacks you in like a different way, kind of like subconsciously, like it hits you when you're trying to fall asleep. But then you have something
yeah.
like what you wrote, which kind of has that uh, you know Texas Chainsaw Massacre formula, but it
Mhm.
suited me as a reader though, because it's like I said, it captures this sweet spot of attention, um, for the type of story that it was. So
Mhm.
I always wonder about that, like the challenges that authors face when they're trying to find the are you writing something just for the sake of it being long, or are you trying to really suit the story? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't most of my books aren't really long. I think maybe 62,000 words might be like my longest book. I admire those people who write like 100,000 words and
Right.
200,000 words. I'm like, that's probably a great epic fantasy. I don't
Yeah.
know what it,
Yeah.
but like they'll be like, I just did 100,000 words for my book, and I'm just sitting there like, what did you say?
Right.
I just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, especially reading King. Like, I remember I was reading it, and he had this whole like chapter or two chapters about, I forget which character's name. He's the one that killed himself before everything started.
Yeah.
And it was about them not having a kid and all this stuff. And I was just like, is all this necessary?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
you I've seen the show, I've seen the movies and stuff. So I was like, you're about to like off him in a few pages. So why are you telling me all this?
Yeah. I
So I kind of like to just get to the action. I don't I don't really like to wait around. Then again, I have no patience in real life, so
Right. Yeah, I feel that. I had a very similar experience with Pet Cemetery. There was a scene where the main character's in a um like a like a cafeteria, and he's buying a sandwich, and he's talking about the texture of the sandwich and all these things, and I kind of felt the same way. I was like, all right, it's like I get it, and
yeah,
I love when authors can capture the mundane experience of like everyday
yeah,
life. Like, hey, we've all bitten into a ham sandwich that we didn't really care about,
yeah,
but do I really want to know about
uh,
the guy who made the sandwich and the guy who employed the guy who
yeah,
made the sandwich? And um, so I definitely respect
yeah.
an
It's
author that can cut out some of the fluff, as well as somebody that can sort of perfectly capture the mundane. I guess time and place
yeah,
is the thing here.
definitely. I think some people capture the fluff like amazingly, and then like just King for me though is just it definitely feels like somebody told him how long this book was needed to be, and he's like, all right,
I,
well, we're gonna talk about this door for a little while.
I guess it's more.
So
I don't know. I don't know if that's a good strategy, if there's like a requirement, and I hate to see people get hung up on that, because whatever story you want
yeah.
to write is as long as it needs to be.
Yeah, I feel like it's just gonna the story's gonna tell itself.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need for me to like force it to be 70,000 words. If I got everything done and it's like 60,000 words and it's understandable and I said what I needed to say, then I'm fine with it.
Right on. So speaking of saying what you need to say, is there like a goal that you have in mind in terms of what you're writing? Like, are you trying to send a certain message, or are you just writing for self expression, or yeah.
Um, I want, black horror fans to maybe find my books, seek out my books, see themselves as heroes. I like writing about black families and um, friendships and whatnot. And I just want people to sit down and feel like the character is like one of their friends.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty sure there's people that sat down and watched it and was like, "Oh, this is just like my hometown." Erie is nothing like my hometown.
Right.
I grew up in the projects, so this is not connecting to me.
Right.
So I want to make stories that connect to just people that I know
Right
and
on.
make people feel like they're connected. And as far as like career wise, I want people to like when they think about zombie books or just like black horror, I want them to like think about me. So I'm
Right.
trying.
Yep. That
I'll look it up. Yeah.
I can say, as somebody kind of on the outside looking into that situation a little bit, because obviously I don't think I'm like the target audience for what you've read. Uh,
Yeah.
but even with that being said, I still found that at its core, the story of yours that I did read, you were telling a good story. Um,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it. And I knew right from the jump, I was like, I don't think I'm who he's, targeting here. But even as somebody from outside that's landed in there a
Yeah.
little bit, I found things within it to appreciate, and I kind of really enjoyed that, because that's part of the experience of reading. I think is that you're gonna
Yeah.
sort of have an eye opening experience with other people's perspectives, and what they're dealing with in their life, and have to think about it. Um,
Yeah.
so
For the most part, I sit down and I focus on making a good story and making a compelling and like maybe scary story,
Right.
and then I just kind of shape it with a black gaze or black point of view. So
Right
that's
on.
just pretty much, and I add comedy to like everything. Sometimes I'm like, I really need to stop this. This I shouldn't make people laugh, but I was just like, I love laughing, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I add comedy to everything I write.
So, um, you talked about your new book that's coming out this month, which is the Camp Lanier. Since that's
Mhm.
already being ready for release, have you already started working on your next thing?
Um, do I? I need to work on my outline for like Young Blood 2, and I have projects in mind. I have like 3 short stories that I need to write. But as far as like novel releases for next year, I haven't started anything yet, but I do have plans.
Right on.
I I have one that I really want to write, and it's kind of like it's a revenge story based in like the zombie apocalypse, and it's just like one family hunting another family, and it's like I I want to make it like gory. Like I want to start doing more like splatterpunk things,
Right.
but the splatterpunk that I want to do isn't necessarily the ones that I've read so far. I Mine's is probably just going to be focused on the gore and the explaining the visual, giving a visual to the terrible things. But I don't think I'm gonna dive too deep into a lot of the trauma aspects of stuff that I've read. But yeah, I'm trying to do some splatter.
Right on.
That's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, there seems
Yeah,
to be a whole sort of indie community of splatterpunk authors that are taking off right
yeah,
now. I think there's some strength in that community too. I don't know if you're going to get that from a whole other genres where you have a community of authors that are all writing the same type of thing and they're all sticking together
yeah.
or promoting themselves and each other. Um,
Um,
so
I
there,
mean, it's like that in other genres. Like because I come from the post-apocalyptic genre, and it's like that there. But post-apocalyptic is they focus on whale readers. So they write series. So their series will be like 10 books or maybe like 8
right,
books or 20 books.
yeah,
And I'm just like, I kind of want to step away from series right now and do kind of like standalones. I still have to finish up Planet Dead
yeah,
and The Realm and another series, but I see.
yeah. I
So,
can I
but
can appreciate that as a person. I always tell my wife because she reads a lot of series and things like that. And I'm a one shot kind of guy. You know what I mean? It may be one
yeah.
sequel, but I don't have to dedicate as much as my time to a whole series. I love being
Mm,
able to just one and done, and it's But I understand
yeah.
how you might have to create a series to group readers in and keep them
Yeah.
engaged with now they have to read the second or the
For
third.
yeah, for me, I worry that because I've read some series that I loved, and then like I'll read like book 4 or 5, and I was like, this was a filler. Nothing happened. Like
Yep.
in the overall story, nothing happened. So that's like my when I'm sitting down to do like the next Planet Dead book, I'm just like, is this gonna be a filler? Am I gonna make this mean something, or should I just skip to the end or something? And I'll just like I think that's my wall that I need to come over
Right.
to get Planet Dead done, because I'm just worried that I'm gonna write 2 filler books and then the ending. But hopefully not.
Right. I think. I guess I never really thought about if an author has to, and I'm sure that they do, but to intentionally kind of like, I gotta fill in these gaps somehow.
It's Yeah. It's one thing to be watching a TV show and having a filler episode. It's another thing to get to the end of a book and you're like, nothing happened here. Like,
Right on.
like there might have been a mission, there might have been an adventure and stuff, but the core narrative, nothing has changed.
Right.
So you're just kind of like, okay, yeah. So I definitely don't want to end up doing that in a book. So
Right on. Well, I'm pretty much running out of my questions here that I had planned for you. Um, So I'd like to thank you for just hanging out with me for a bit and being the first you know new guest on my show here that I'm doing. Um,
Oh,
I look forward to following your stuff moving forward because I'm definitely engaged. I liked your social media pages there. And
mhm.
of course, when I post this up on YouTube or whatever, I'll put all your
Yeah,
social media links and everything so people can find you. I know
awesome.
there's a couple people personally I know that'll definitely appreciate your angle and what you're trying to do. And
Awesome.
yeah, I'm excited for you because I think you've kind of hit something that I don't want to say has a lot of potential because you've already sort of that your
Mhm.
momentum is moving forward, right? You're not
Yeah.
a body at rest here. Your momentum's moving
Yeah.
forward. So it'll
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to continue to follow you on your socials and
Mhm.
Goodreads and things like that. So um, I'll continue to talk good about you because I really did like what I've read so far. And um,
Thank you.
yep, I really do appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us. Um,
Yeah.
so
I definitely want to see this grow. Like, I cannot do YouTube. Like,
yeah,
it's just so much work to me.
yeah,
So, I applaud you for taking this on, and I really hope everything grows and just falls together for you.
yeah. Right on.
So,
Yeah,
but
it's definitely probably the hardest social media platform because nobody cares.
yeah,
Nobody cares. But whatever. I'm excited about it just because I get an opportunity to, and I have to do it myself. But I'm giving myself the opportunity to talk to people that are interesting to me and have written things
mhm,
that I wanted to read and stuff. So it's like, why not just talk to people who are out there
mhm,
doing the things that I want to do. So
definitely,
right on.
definitely.
Yeah. So like I said, this is Sylvester Barzey, author, writer. Um,
Yeah,
yes, sir. So we'll
yeah.
bring it to a natural close here, but I appreciate you coming on.
All right, awesome. I
All
had a
right.
great time.
Thanks, man.